My parents are on a business trip and miss my celebration audition. I'm so upset. After practicing dancing late at night, I ran into Asher, Taylor's brother, and we got into a fight. Why is he targeting me like this? But I have feelings for him. Ash's perspective. The front door behind her clicked shut, with a sharp, decisive sound that felt like a cold, thin blade slicing through the silence of the entire house. Standing at the top of the stairs, arms crossed tightly over my chest, knuckles pressed against the icy railing, I listened as her footsteps faded away on the sidewalk, disappearing into the night at an absurdly rapid pace. It was freezing outside, so cold that her clothes simply couldn't keep her warm. I could still vividly recall every detail. The thin cardigan she'd wrapped tightly around her shoulders did nothing to block even a hint of the biting wind. Her worn-out jeans clung closely to her slender legs, and those ridiculous little flat shoes, barely able to ward off the chill rising from the ground, let alone the bone-deep cold of this late-night breeze. Every single detail burned so sharply into my memory that the inexplicable restlessness welling up inside me only grew stronger and stronger until my fingertips turned pale from gripping the railings so tightly. For a fleeting moment, I stood rooted to the spot, breathing in the rich warmth of the room. The aroma of dinner and lingering laughter hung in the air like wisps of smoke, trying to convince me that none of it had anything to do with me. But the truth was, this was very much my business. Silently, I made my way down the stairs, my boots barely making a sound as they touched the worn wooden floor. My parents were still in the kitchen, plates scattered haphazardly across the table. My father was pouring the last drops of red wine into two mismatched glasses. "She's just going home by herself?" I asked, striving to keep my tone calm and casual. My mother looked up, her face still tinged with a faint smile left over from tonight's laughter. "Don't worry, dear. She lives only a few blocks away. Walking there would take at most 10 minutes. I glanced once more toward the doorway, my jaw clenched tight. "It's already dark," I said, "and it's cold." And I stopped abruptly, swallowing the rest of my sentence. She was so tiny, so fragile. The little bit of fabric she was wearing seemed more suited to the warm ballet studio than to a freezing night like this one. My father waved his hand dismissively. "This neighborhood is perfectly safe, Ash. As safe as it gets." I didn't say a word, because I knew better than anyone. Safety simply didn't exist. It never had. Bad things were everywhere, right here in the shiny neighborhoods, on quiet streets, even happening to girls who thought that a 10-minute walk home would be safe enough, that nothing could possibly go wrong. I knew all too well. I clenched my teeth, forcing myself to push that thought aside. "Do you guys really let Taylor run off to parties like this all the time?" I changed the subject, and my tone came out sharper than I'd intended. My mother frowned slightly but still replied with a smile, "He's already 19, honey. He's old enough to make his own decisions now. And besides," my father added, reaching for the remote control and lazily pressing the button to turn off the TV, "he's always been a good kid, though sometimes he can get a bit wild. He's never done anything really outrageous." I nodded, not daring to say another word, just thinking about how he'd simply left that girl behind, treated her as if she didn't matter at all, made a suffocating rage rise up in my chest, like a bitter stone pressing against my ribs. I forced this emotion back down where it belonged, leaned over, and kissed my mother's cheek. Then I whispered softly, "Thanks for letting me stay here." She gave me an unexpectedly tight hug, her warm arms wrapping around my shoulders, her voice soft as it brushed against my ear. "This place will always be your home, kid." I nodded again, my throat tightening until I could barely breathe. But the truth was, this place hadn't been my home for a long time. Not ever really. I took a step back, loosened my grip on her, and turned toward the staircase, my boots thudding heavily against each step as I climbed two at a time. At the end of the hallway, the guest room awaited me, or rather, that's what they called it. But as soon as I pushed open the door, I knew it was far more than just a guest room. The walls were painted in the same navy blue shade as the house I'd left 3 years ago. The bed was covered with the dark quilt I used to collapse onto after long shifts at the docks. Back then, all I worried about was earning enough gas money and passing my calculus exam. Even a few of my old belongings were scattered around the room. A couple of books whose contents I'd almost completely forgotten, a framed photograph of our family of four taken during a long-forgotten beach trip, and that tattered baseball glove I'd stubbornly refused to throw away. They were trying to make this house, now that we'd moved in, feel just like the one we'd left behind a year ago. But no matter how hard they tried to mimic it, this place would never truly be the same. And neither was I the person I used to be. I sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress sinking under my weight. I raised my hand and ran it through my hair, my gaze fixed firmly on the floor. I didn't want to be back here at all. If it had been up to me, I'd still be out there, working, carrying out missions, doing something meaningful and worthwhile, pursuing tasks with clear rules and well-defined goals for survival. But I didn't get to choose. I never have. Your superior issued an order. Mandatory leave. When the documents were signed and the seal was stamped, and they were handed to me, their gaze clearly said, "You've got no choice, Hayes." So I came back. I'm sitting in a house that doesn't belong to me, living in a body that no longer fits, trying hard not to let the walls close in on me. I lie back, propping one arm behind my head, staring up at the ceiling. The shadows cast by the ceiling fan blades slowly circle above me. Uncontrollably, my thoughts drift back to her again, Penny. That's what everyone called her. Penny with a smile that was far too bright, her soft blonde hair pulled into a tight bun, a few stray strands dangling near her ears. Penny, clad in a thin pink exercise outfit and fragile dance socks. Look closely enough, and you can still spot the faint bruises peeking through on her ankles. Penelope, who seemed utterly out of this world, almost as if plucked straight from a fairy tale where good people never suffer misfortune. I hated girls like her, spoiled, fragile, and utterly insulated from the raw, brutal truths that keep the world running. They never have to worry about cold nights or malicious touches. They'll never know the gut-wrenching fear of turning a corner only to find someone lurking behind you. They don't understand that safety is just a lie. They don't realize that walking alone at night never means no one can hurt you. And yet, even still, her image standing in the doorway keeps haunting me, her narrow shoulders wrapped tightly in a cardigan, trying desperately to mask her embarrassment with a smile. Taylor looked exactly the same. With a grin and giggles, he shrugged off all responsibility, tossing her aside without a second thought, without even sending a single text message, let alone a word of warning. I turned away, my fist slamming hard into the mattress, my fingers curling tightly until my knuckles cracked. This wasn't about her. It was all about him, about his carelessness, his arrogance, about how he'd taken for granted that everything would always work out just fine, because that's always been the way it was. Because someone who'd never seen things spiral out of control could only assume it had never happened to them. I stared at the wall, my jaw clenched tight, my breathing slow and steady. I shouldn't have cared. I didn't care at all. Taylor was an idiot. That was his problem. And the fact that some spoiled little princess had to stumble home in the dark? That had nothing to do with me. I'd come back here to sleep, to recover, to get through this goddamn forced vacation without losing my mind. I'm not here to save anyone, especially her. Especially someone like her. Especially someone who sees the world as soft and safe. Someone who thinks that no matter how badly she falls, there'll always be someone there to catch her. I closed my eyes. She's not my problem, and I'd never, ever let her become one. Penny's perspective. The weekend can't come soon enough. It's not even noon yet, but I'm already utterly drained, my nerves stretched taut to the breaking point, and my mind is a chaotic mess, with thoughts racing around aimlessly, each one slipping through my fingers, impossible to grasp or untangle. This past week, it's been nothing short of exciting. But at the end of the day, it's mostly just been exhausting. Most of the time, I've been glaring at Taylor, though it's not that I really want to punish him. It's just that every time I think about how he suddenly vanished during dinner, leaving me awkwardly stranded alone in a house full of strangers, a suffocating sense of frustration wells up inside me, impossible to ignore. B.I. wasn't yelling. I wasn't making a big scene. I'd just stopped replying to his messages the instant they came in. I'd stopped smiling at him so easily. Then, as if life always loves to play these dark little jokes, I saw those photos. There was Taylor at some family party, his arm casually draped over Zoe's chair back, laughing so loudly that he was tossing ping-pong balls into plastic cups, and half the girls in the photo were leaning toward him for no good reason at all. What bothered me wasn't the beer pong game. It wasn't even Zoe's sly smile, the one that seemed to hide a secret. It was how utterly at ease he looked, like everything that night had been perfectly natural, completely unremarkable. I stared at that photo for far too long, so long that even after I closed my eyes, the image remained burned into the back of my eyelids. For the next few days, Taylor stopped pressuring me and gave me space. /B, he apologized, sending me a string of messages. I'm an idiot. I miss you. Let me make it up to you. But all that did was leave me even more exhausted. I think I've finally let it go now. Or rather, almost. I just don't have the energy to keep dwelling on this anymore. Tomorrow is the audition for the gala, the most important opportunity of my life. It's the goal I've been chasing with everything I've got over the past year. I need to keep my mind sharp. I should be thinking about blocking out my moves, timing my breaths, and ensuring the fluidity of my dance. I should be rehearsing the entire routine over and over in my head until I can execute it flawlessly without having to consciously think about it at all. But this morning, I spent most of the time sitting cross-legged on my bed, laptop resting on my knees, typing Asher Hayes into every search bar like some kind of dazed fool. I couldn't find a thing. No Facebook account, no Instagram posts, no smiling, soldierly headshots in crisp high resolution. The only result was a blurry snippet of local news from 3 years ago, a clip featuring a group of newly enlisted Navy recruits whose names scrolled across the bottom of the screen in tiny, barely legible text.
I should stop thinking about him.
Stop recalling his voice, so quiet yet somehow raspy, like sandpaper rubbing against skin. Stop picturing those calm, icy eyes that seemed to see right through secrets even I hadn't realized I'd been hiding. I should stop thinking about all of it, the Taylors, the Zoes, the Rebeccas, Asher, and that heavy, suffocating feeling from that night, but my mind just refuses to cooperate. I shook my head to clear it of these thoughts, then headed downstairs, raised my arms above my head, and stretched until my shoulders popped audibly, trying to release the tension building up inside me before it sank too deep. The kitchen was filled with the aroma of coffee and freshly toasted bread. "Good morning," I said as I stepped into the room, pulling my cardigan tighter around myself. My parents were sitting at the island counter, each holding a steaming cup of coffee, and they looked up at me. They exchanged a glance, a look that was loaded with meaning. I recognized it immediately. It was the same look they always gave whenever they were about to tell me something I wasn't going to like. My stomach clenched suddenly, a tiny ball of tension that felt heavy and oppressive. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light and casual. My mother set her cup gently onto the table with a soft click. "Honey," she said, "there's something we need to tell you." I slid onto the high stool, and even before they'd started speaking, my heart had already sunk. "We've got to go to a meeting," my father said, a meeting that had been called at the last minute. "We're leaving today," she said. I stared at them in astonishment. "Today?" They nodded, both of their faces wearing expressions of guilt. "But the audition for the celebration is tomorrow." My voice rose involuntarily. "I know," my mother hurriedly replied. "We'd love to stay, really we do. But this meeting is incredibly important. It's a rare opportunity." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat almost impossible to suppress. A cotton ball soaked in water seemed lodged deep within me, making even my breathing feel heavy. They'd finally found their own way to support me, but when I needed them most, work still came first. That audition had been the one chance I'd been waiting for all year long. Countless times, I'd imagined them sitting in the audience, cheering me on. Yet now, even that one remaining hope had been shattered. My fingertips felt icy cold in an instant. The smile I forced myself to muster looked even worse than a cry, and all I could do was keep telling myself to stay strong. At last, they'd found their own way to support me. But deep down, their work would always come first. I nodded and managed a faint smile. "It's okay, I understand. You'll be fine, I'm sure. my father said, reaching out to take my hand. You're already ready. You don't need us to stay with you. I bit hard on the inside of my cheek, tasting a faint metallic tang of blood, yet I still nodded again. You could ask Taylor to give you a ride, my mother suggested. Or, if you'd rather, you could take the bus. It's not far. I didn't say a word. I didn't know what to say. We'll probably be gone for about a week, my father said. We're heading out of state for a meeting. Just a week, alone. Even when this house is packed with people, it still feels way too empty. Imagine how much emptier it'll be when it's completely deserted. You could have Taylor come stay over, my mom added with a smile, or invite some of your friends along. Then you won't feel so lonely. Okay, I replied, my voice sounding embarrassingly faint even to my own ears. She gave me a gentle pat on the shoulder. We'll call you after the audition, I promise. I nodded again, my movements stiff and robotic. As I watched them rise from their seats, bustling around the kitchen, packing up luggage, travel mugs, and documents, I still hadn't fully processed what was happening, and yet, before I knew it, they were almost out the door. A few minutes later, the front door slammed shut behind them, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen, the aroma of coffee lingering like a ghostly presence that refused to fade. I wrapped my arms around myself, leaned against the counter, and stared at the empty doorway. It wasn't a big deal. I'd gotten used to it long ago. They were always away on business trips. I'd grown up, I could take care of myself just fine. It was all okay. Really, it was totally fine. But when I closed my eyes, all I could see were images of tomorrow. The vast, empty audition hall. The long, gleaming floor that seemed to stretch endlessly, rows upon rows of judges, hundreds of other dancers, all of them there except me, standing alone. I exhaled slowly, forcing the tightness in my chest to ease up. None of this mattered. Compared to wallowing in self-pity, I had far more important things to worry about. Tomorrow was what really counted. Tomorrow was everything. I pushed off the counter and headed upstairs, already beginning to silently rehearse the dance moves, the rhythm of the music, the precise timing of my breaths. Focus, Penny. Just focus. The door to the practice room clicked softly behind me, its sound echoing off the empty sidewalk. I slipped the heavy keys from my hand into the pocket of my sweatshirt, stepped outside, and was immediately greeted by the cool night air, a wave of chill I hadn't even noticed, long awaited, and now sweeping over my heated skin. It was late already. To be honest, it was way too late. I adjusted my bag higher on my shoulder, turned my neck to shake off the last vestiges of adrenaline-fueled excitement. Even though the music had stopped half an hour ago, its lingering echoes still hummed faintly in my ears. Tonight's rehearsal, it went so smoothly. Smoother than I'd ever imagined. After the week I'd just been through, it was unbelievably smooth, beyond anything I could have dreamed of. Tonight, the choreography flowed effortlessly through my body, every beat, every breath, every spin and turn, all perfectly synchronized, with no trace of the usual hesitations or struggles. Standing in the middle of this dilapidated community practice room, drenched in sweat yet wearing a smile on my lips, I suddenly realized, perhaps, just perhaps, that tomorrow might not be a disaster after all. I needed this victory. I needed to reaffirm that I could still believe in myself, that I could still stand firmly on my own 2 feet. I took a deep breath, letting the cool air soothe the tightness in my chest, and began walking forward. The sound of my sneakers softly scraping against the sidewalk filled the air. For half a second, I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the taxi-hailing app icon on my phone. But the street remained bustling, packed with college students and late-night diners. From a bar 2 blocks away, the faint strains of a band's music drifted over. This place wasn't eerie at all. It wasn't dangerous in the slightest. In fact, it felt downright normal. After the week I'd just been through, normal was the very best thing I could possibly hope for. Then I shoved my phone back into my pocket and kept walking. The cold seeped through my tight-fitting pants, creeping up my legs, and the day's exhaustion began to weigh heavily and familiarly on my muscles. As I reached the corner near the old library, head down and lost in thought about the opening beats of my solo dance, I suddenly bumped hard into something solid and unyielding. My bag slipped off my shoulder and clattered onto the sidewalk with a loud clang. I stumbled backward, taking an involuntary step back, and before I even had time to look up, I was already gasping out apologies one after another. "I'm so sorry, I wasn't watching where I was going. Then I finally got a good look at him. It was Asher. He was wearing running shoes and a dark-colored sweatshirt. The fabric across his chest was soaked with sweat. His hair was slicked back, revealing his forehead. The flickering light from the street lamp outlined his face, and his expression remained as enigmatic as ever. His breathing was slightly rapid, as if he'd just finished a sprint, but his posture remained perfectly upright, steady as a mountain. It was as though even a hurricane could not shake him in the slightest. For a fleeting moment, he looked just as surprised as I did. Then his lips tightened into an even colder, harder line, and he took a small step backward, just enough to give me space, yet still lacking any hint of courtesy, marked by a clear sense of detachment. He didn't help me pick up my bag. He didn't say, "It's okay." Instead, he simply stared at me with an expressionless face, waiting for me to sort myself out. Like he were an immovable wall, and I were merely a nuisance he'd tolerate for 30 seconds at most. I let out a frustrated breath, picked up my bag from the ground, and muttered under my breath, "Sorry," before quickly stepping past him, though every nerve in my body still felt tense from that collision. But of course, he wasn't going to let me leave just like that. He had to say something, anything at all. "Where's Taylor?" he asked, his voice low and hoarse, as if dredged up from the depths of the ocean. It carried no emotion whatsoever, just a cold, piercing question. I froze. I didn't know why this question should bother me so much, but it did. I had no idea where Taylor was. Not all night long. And I certainly didn't feel like explaining myself to him. "I don't know," I said, trying hard to keep my tone steady, my fingers gripping the strap of my bag tightly. He raised an eyebrow slowly, his expression one of faint disdain, as if my answer only confirmed what he'd already suspected. "You shouldn't have been out alone this late," he said, his words carrying such a heavy judgment that it felt like a stone had just dropped onto my chest. I completely lost it. Before I could think, before I could calm down, the words just burst out, sharp, hurried, and laced with fury. "Is that so? Well, you shouldn't have been like that either." I shot back, my voice echoing loudly in the quiet street, my heart pounding wildly against my ribs. He tilted his head slightly, his face still wearing that damn calm expression, as if he were examining some mildly interesting problem he couldn't be bothered to actually solve. It was precisely this look, the way he stood there, the way he looked at me with eyes that made me feel tiny and utterly vulnerable, that finally snapped the last thread of my patience. "You don't know a single thing about me," I suddenly shouted, my voice trembling slightly with emotion. "So, could you please stop being such an asshole? Seriously, what's wrong with you? Relying on your sheer size and on that damn, judgmental face of yours, you—" I stumbled to a halt, my cheeks burning hot. My words came out jumbled and awkward, leaving me utterly mortified. I hated this. I hated how effortlessly he could reduce me to such a state. I hated that I cared enough to feel this furious. He didn't flinch. He didn't smirk. He didn't even blink. He just stood there, silently and enigmatically staring at me, like a wall that no matter how many times I slammed into it, I'd never managed to leave so much as a scratch. I exhaled sharply through my nose, my knuckles gripping the strap of my bag, throbbing with pain. Finally, I turned around and strode away, purposefully and resolutely. As I walked down the sidewalk, my whole body still buzzing with lingering fury and shame, I didn't look back. Not even once. I didn't want to give him the slightest hint of satisfaction. As I walked up to my doorstep, my legs ached terribly, and my throat felt tight. The fury that had once burned so fiercely was now completely drained, leaving me with nothing but an empty, trembling sensation. I pushed open the door and stepped into the darkened house. The entire building was eerily silent and utterly vacant. This silence wasn't peaceful at all. It just felt overwhelmingly vast and profoundly lonely. Leaning against the door, I dropped my bag at my feet, closed my eyes, and breathed in the faint scent of laundry detergent mingled with the chill in the air. I shouldn't have lost my temper with him. I knew that. From the moment we'd met, he'd always been a jerk. Cold, sharp, and impossible to read, but still, he didn't deserve to bear the brunt of my anger. He really didn't. I wasn't angry at him. Not really. I was angry at Taylor. Angry at his absence. Angry at myself. Angry for caring so much in the first place. Ugh, the audition is tomorrow, of all days. I'm furious about this whole damn, tangled up mess. I fling open the door, kick my shoes into the corner, and head upstairs, so exhausted that I can't even be bothered to take a shower, so drained that I don't even have the energy to think. Tomorrow is the big day. Tomorrow is the only thing that matters. I climb into bed, pull the covers over my head, and vow to myself, when I wake up, I'll leave it all behind. As soon as the music starts playing, none of this will matter anymore. That audition isn't just any ordinary casting. It's the most crucial stepping stone in my dance career, the one chance to shake off all my past failures and finally prove my worth, the glimmer of hope I've been chasing through countless sleepless nights, enduring bruised ankles, and every other kind of pain. I've got to let go of everything else and give it my absolute all.